Hello, and thank you for taking the time to review this MMM Global presentation today. I know your time is extremely valuable, and we appreciate you sharing a little bit with us. The information that we're going to share with you today is going to be shocking. It's going to be an eye-opener, but most importantly, it's going to be exciting. We're going to provide you with a way to have financial prosperity, not like you would through an MLM company or an affiliate marketing company, but in a way that we can really help people who may otherwise not been able to help themselves. So what is MMM Global? Well, in its simplest term, it's a peer-to-peer worldwide mutual aid social society. So what does that mean? That means that we have a system of members and participants that have decided to help people, so when they provide help now, when they need help later, it's available to them. And there's a system that actually rewards you called the Mavro, and we'll get into that in detail in a minute. Now, what really a lot of people don't realize is that as a company, you would normally have a central point of failure. Well, in this case, we're not a company, we're not a bank, and we're certainly not an investment. Where there is no central account, you don't transfer money to MMM, MMM never takes money from you. All donations are directly sent to the recipient's accounts. Now, MMM doesn't provide any promises, no guarantees, and every participant understands there's going to be inherent risks with sending donation to other members, other places throughout the world. Now, how did it all start? Well, to really get into detail, I could sit here for a long time and explain it to you, and there's movies about it, but at the end of the day, a gentleman by the name of Sergei Mavrodi, back in 1989, when the collapse of Russia and the oligarchs, which were the rich, were looking to take over control of everybody. And at that time, they didn't really have many options. So Sergei, being a mathematical genius, he realized that the banking systems are really built on big pyramids and more so Ponzi schemes in regards to how they control everything. And we'll get into that in more detail in a little bit. But at the end of the day, he figured out a way to give back to the people through a system of mutual benefit. The government didn't like that because he was starting to get control of over 25% of the money in all of Russia, so they ended up persecuting him. Well, when he came out of that, he came back stronger and bigger and better than ever. In 2011, he launched MMM Global Community. Now, after he left Russia, he was able to look at a worldwide mutual aid fund community to help provide financial independence for everyone around the world. So where are we today? Well, we are now a community of over 200 million people and growing in over 118 countries worldwide. Now, I don't know about you, but anything that's that large is a movement. It's not just a program. 5 years of activity, they have over $15 billion of worldwide assistance that's been provided throughout the system. And they're, of course, the #1 donation exchange program in the world. Now, we're built on a platform called the Bitcoin platform. Now, for those of you that already know it, fantastic. For those of you that don't, Bitcoin is what they call a cryptocurrency. And in its simplest terms, Bitcoin is a decentralized, meaning that there's really no central point of failure. Everybody in this system tracks the Bitcoin. And anytime, any transaction can be checked out anywhere worldwide. There's only a minimum amount of Bitcoin that will ever be put into existence, and it has a value. You can actually purchase things with it. You can purchase it from a cell phone, so you don't need a bank account. You can actually use it in over 60,000 merchants, and it's growing all the time. As a matter of fact, venture capital companies, just last year alone, put over $1 billion into the infrastructure behind companies that support Bitcoin. So they know it's going to be most likely the future of currency. Well, that's the platform that we use because it really can't be regulated and it's decentralized. It really is a perfect breeding ground to provide a system that's outside of the banking system. So what has MMM Global done? They've leveled the playing field for everyone. They provide a system where they track everything, and when you give or provide help in the system, you use discretionary or spare money that you can afford to lose. Like you're playing a lottery, or you are going to go to Vegas, and or you had extra money. It's not going to hurt your family. It's discretionary. And then you're going to be credited for providing help or helping somebody that needs help in your back office or your personal office with their currency called the Mavro. Now, the Mavro is an internal currency of the MMM global system that grows. For being part of the growth of our network and growing this movement, and it's all about the flow of money coming in, money going out, they'll literally, from the amount that you deposit in someone else's e-wallet or the electronic wallet with Bitcoin, they will increase your Mavro from 20% all the way up to 100% depending on what programs you're involved in. So for every $100 as an example, you would get 100 Mavro credit. So that calculation is calculated by the company and you're credited for it. So how does this work? What is it that we're actually doing? We're only doing two things. We provide help and we get help. How do we provide help? Each participant has a e-wallet, such as a Coinbase or a blockchain, one of the Bitcoin wallets that holds Bitcoin, that you have funded that with Bitcoin, and we'll explain to you how to do that. And then you're providing Bitcoin to someone else somewhere else in the world. And you're providing help for people that ask to get help. So we provide help and we get help. In this scenario, there was somebody who requested, in this case, $10,000, and 4 people requested help. This person provided help. Now, on the other side of it, once you have decided to, almost at any time after 15 days of starting and providing help, you can actually get help. What does that mean? That you can actually receive Bitcoin and then can be converted to either buy things that you want to buy and or convert it back to your bank account. So here's an example. Let's say you announce you're going to put $100 and you're going to provide help into the network. That means that somewhere in the world you're going to give $100. You're going to get credited from day one, regardless of how long it takes for you to fulfill that. You're going to get credited from day one. Let's say you were growing at 30% a month. That would be $30 you would have grown in a month to $130. Now, in the United States and in some other countries, we have what we call MMM Extra. MMM Extra allows you to grow at 100% a month. What does that mean? If you have 100 Mavro that you've been credited for the $100 in assistance that you've provided by providing help, by the end of the month, it'll actually grow every day all the way up to 100%, which would be 200 Mavro, which you could actually take out of the system, and you have doubled effectively the money you put into the system. You would have gotten $200 into your e-wallet and your Bitcoin that you could put into cash or buy things with. But let's say you kept it in the account, and you kept a portion of it in, but in this case you kept it all in for a couple of months. What does that mean? If you took $100, it would grow to $200, it would double the first month. By the second month, that 200 would grow to 400. By the third month, that 400 would grow to 800. You can scale this all the way up to as high as $10,000 that you can deposit. That's the maximum amount that you can put in the system. Minimum is $10. In the US, we have what we call the MMM Extra. MMM Extra allows you to do daily activities that you do have to do in order to get credit of a Facebook post, participating in a group, comment, tweeting, Pinterest, different social media activities to expand and grow the brand and grow the word of the MMM Global throughout the world. Now let's take a minute to talk about the banking system, because the ideology behind what we're doing, and there's a lot of videos and information to back this up, it's all about the fact that there's an injustice and an inequality in regards to the banking systems and how we've been treated, while the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So Andrew Jackson stated that if the people only understood the rank injustice in our money banking system, there would be a revolution by morning. Henry Ford in 1922. It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there'd be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Now, I'm going to share with you a video that was done by a Harvard professor that surveyed 5,000 people, from the rich all the way up to celebrities, CEOs, down to the ditch digger, and the doctor in the middle, and everybody in between. And I think you're going to find this extremely shocking, probably disturbing, but it's important. So enjoy.
There's a chart I saw recently that I can't get out of my head. A Harvard business professor and economist asked more than 5,000 Americans how they thought wealth was distributed in the United States. This is what they said they thought it was. Dividing the country into 5 rough groups of the top, bottom, and middle 3 20% groups, they asked people how they thought the wealth in this country was divided. Then he asked them what they thought was the ideal distribution. And 92%, that's at least 9 out of 10 of them, said it should be more like this. In other words, more equitable than they think it is. Now that fact is telling, admittedly, the notion that most Americans know that the system is already skewed unfairly. But what's most interesting to me is the reality compared to our perception. The ideal is as far removed from our perception of reality as the actual distribution is from what we think exists in this country. So ignore the ideal for a moment. Here's what we think it is again. And here is the actual distribution. Shockingly skewed. Not only do the bottom 20% and the next 20%, the bottom 40% of Americans barely have any of the wealth. I mean, it's hard to even see them on the chart. But the top 1% has more of the country's wealth than 9 out of 10 Americans believe the entire top 20% should have. Mind-blowing. But let's look at it another way, because I find this chart kind of difficult to wrap my head around. Instead, let's reduce the 311 million Americans to just a representative 100 people. Make it simple. Here they are. Teachers, coaches, firefighters, construction workers, engineers, doctors, lawyers, some investment bankers, a CEO, maybe a celebrity or two. Now let's line them up according to their wealth. Poorest people on the left, wealthiest on the right, just a steady row of folks based on their net worth. We'll color code them like we did before based on which 20% quintile they fall into. Now let's reduce the total wealth of the United States, which was roughly $54 trillion in 2009, to this symbolic pile of cash. And let's distribute it among our 100 Americans. Well, here's socialism, all the wealth of the country distributed equally. We all know that won't work. We need to encourage people to work and work hard to achieve that good old American dream and keep our country moving forward. So, here's that ideal we asked everyone about. Something like this curve. This isn't too bad. We've got some incentive, as the wealthiest folks are now about 10 to 20 times better off than the poorest Americans. But hey, even the poor folks aren't actually poor, since the poverty line has stayed almost entirely off the chart. We have a super healthy middle class with a smooth transition into wealth. And yes, Republicans and Democrats alike chose this curve. 9 out of 10 people, 92%, said this was a nice, ideal distribution of America's wealth. But let's move on. This is what people think America's wealth distribution actually looks like. Not as equitable, clearly, but for me, even this still looks pretty great. Yes, the poorest 20 to 30% are starting to suffer quite a lot compared to the ideal, and the middle class is certainly struggling more than they were, while the rich and wealthy are making roughly 100 times that of the poorest Americans, and about 10 times that of the still healthy middle class. Sadly, this isn't even close to the reality. Here is the actual distribution of wealth in America. The poorest Americans don't even register. They're down to pocket change. And the middle class is barely distinguishable from the poor. In fact, even the rich between the top 10 and 20 percentile are worse off. Only the top 10% are better off. And how much better off? So much better off that the top 2 to 5% are actually off the chart at this scale. And the top 1%, this guy, well, his stack of money stretches 10 times higher than we can show. Here's his stack of cash, restacked, all by itself. This is the top 1% we've been hearing so much about. So much green in his pockets that I have to give him a whole new column of his own, because he won't fit on my chart. 1% of America has 40% of all the nation's wealth. The bottom 80%, 8 out of every 10 people, or 80 out of these 100, only has 7% between them. And this has only gotten worse in the last 20 to 30 years. While the richest 1% take home almost a quarter of the national income today, in 1976, they took home only 9%, meaning their share of income has nearly tripled in the last 30 years. The top 1% own half the country's stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. The bottom 50% of Americans own only 0.5% of these investments, which means they aren't investing. They're just scraping by. I'm sure many of these wealthy people have worked very hard for their money. But do you really believe that the CEO is working 380 times harder than his average employee? Not his lowest paid employee, not the janitor, but the average earner in his company. The average worker needs to work more than a month to earn what the CEO makes in 1 hour. We certainly don't have to go all the way to socialism to find something that is fair for hardworking Americans. We don't even have to achieve what most of us consider might be ideal. All we need to do is wake up and realize that the reality in this country is not at all what we think it is.
Now, when I first saw that video, all I could say is, wow. If I had only known. Well, what can you do about it? Let's think about this. This process of control from the wealthy has been going on thousands of years. It started back in the time of the pharaohs in the pyramids of Egypt. Why do you think the pyramids were built like pyramids? They realized that a pyramidal structure is a way to control, because they know that the slaves will never make it to the top of the pyramid. You got your slaves in the lower class, middle class, upper class. Not much has changed. Look at the corporate pyramid. Same thing. You've got the employees, we'll call the slaves, are shackled by the dollar as well as the ability to trade dollars for hours, all the way up to the CEO, who you'll never get a chance to take his place. And if you're lucky enough to do it, he's going to have to either die or decide to sell the company. Here's the part that was most shocking. When you watched that video, you saw the top 2% make up the top 20% of the entire wealth in the world. Well, look at the dollar bill. You see the eye? This was built and designed specifically to control and to always maintain control, because he who holds the gold makes the rules is no longer true. It's he who prints the money makes the rules. He who has the controlling interests of the media makes the rules. Now, I'm not going to go into the details. I'll just tell you that you'll see things like the Federal Reserve and the United Nations and income tax and estate tax and a lot of the major pillars of what create wealth are in the top of this pyramidal structure. Notice how I see the rest of us down here, the 80%, we're not even in the pyramid. We're an afterthought. So even some of the societies, the secret societies that you hear about, and again, I'm not here to support all the conspiracy theories. They're not always conspiracy theories. Do your due diligence. I encourage you to. But the ideology behind MMM Global is that Sergei Mavrodi was smart enough to figure this out a long time ago. He just took one look at the system and realized that there's more money going in that's going out. The banks are allowed to leverage your money up to 10 times the depositor's money. Why? Because the Federal Reserve said they could. Why? Because the Federal Reserve are the ones who created everything. But isn't the Federal Reserve federal? Isn't it part of the government? And the answer is no. Federal Reserve is owned as private corporations that are owned by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And I can just tell you that there's more wealth within those families than the majority of the world. Now, how do you gain it back? What are we able to do? Well, as long as everybody decides to be part of the system and mutually understands what they're doing, you have the ability to deposit money in the system, of course, by depositing into someone else's account and providing help. But you also have the ability, if you can't put a lot in or you want to grow a team, we want people trained, educated, understanding how to explain this story properly. Now you can explain it by showing a video like this. You could maybe attend a local meeting. There might be online webinars. The bottom line is there's a lot of videos. There's a lot of information on this MMM movement. But you were able to attend a school that's a 10-day school that will teach you how to become a guider or a manager. One of the things that they also encourage is that when somebody gets started, they'll give you a registration bonus. So if you give or provide help from $50 to $499, you will not only get credited for the Mavro, but you also get a $20 towards your Mavro. $500 to $2,099, you'll get a $50 additional donation that you're doing. They're going to put in your Mavro. And of course, $3,000 or more, up to $10,000, which is the max, they'll give you a $100 bonus into your Mavro they put in your account, which you also can earn on. Now, they also did a referral program. So anybody can participate in the referral program, can have as many referrals as you like. And this is all people that are direct to you, so you don't make any money off of anybody that you refer and they refer somebody else if you are not part of the school or you haven't become a manager. So you'd be at the 10% referral. So that means if somebody put in 1,000, you'd make 100 in your Mavro that you can also earn money on. In addition, you're able to, if you like, you're able to be a part of the system where you can grow a team, you can grow an organization, you can literally be the pebble in the pond and watch the rings go around the world. It's amazing how quickly the word can spread if it's spread properly. And so, unlike a person that isn't a manager, you're able to earn different levels of referrals. 5% on your first level, on the donations up to a max of $10,000 that they donate, 3% on your second, 1% on your third, and so on, all the way down to a tenth of a point. Now, as you can see, that could get very lucrative if you're able to build a team, or you would like to build a team of people that are spreading the word. One of the best parts about this is that everybody mutually knows the risks. You see, a lot of companies, a lot of programs, and this is not a company, but there's a lot of programs out there that don't really tell you the risks. We are so upfront, we want you to know that there's the possibility that you may donate money and not receive any money back. That's why we tell you to only use and donate money that you can spare. Understand that the goal is to continually bring people into the network by providing help, and then, of course, taking money out of the network and getting help. You know, the goal isn't just to accumulate money that you can never touch. The goal is to create an income that can do things that you may need for your family and for whatever it is that's important to you. One of the cool parts is that the operation for the MMM Global has been time tested. They've implemented various mechanisms over the years in the donation exchange process to make it more stable and beneficial for all. Now, they put rules in place to protect everyone. So one of the main things that you want to be careful of is if you're going to sign somebody up, be careful you're in open Wi-Fi like in a Starbucks or someplace like this, because they watch where your IP address is. So if you're going to sign somebody up on your computer, don't do it. Make sure you're at their house and on their computer. Their phone, not your phone. If you're going to sign in from a device, make sure it's only for you, because they track that, and they will stop you if you try to do that, and they'll block you out of the system. So that's a no-no. Only one account per person. You may not advertise on any one of the paid advertising rotators that you really can't share the story properly, and you'll lose or it'll dilute the message. So those ad rotators are no-no. We're not supposed to be involved in those. No advertising on that. Whenever you're going to share this message with somebody, make sure you have somebody review the ideology, get a good understanding of the program before you have to answer 1,000,000 questions for them, and even get them on the phone with one of the managers that can explain it probably better than you can when you first get started. Once you decide that you're going to provide help, you're immediately credited with your Mavro and the system starts earning interest from that day forward. However, you have 36 hours to complete your provide help, which is to transfer the money from your e-wallet, which could be like a Coinbase or a blockchain, which are Bitcoin wallets, to someone else's Bitcoin wallet. And we'll explain to you how to do that, but once you do that, you have 36 hours to do it. If you do not, you will be blocked from the system. You get one try to fix it in case there was a circumstance out of your control. And most importantly, you want to share with everyone that there's always the possibility of a financial, either worldwide or countrywide crisis. What does it do? It causes panic. Now, the MMM Global will initiate a pause that can last up to 2.5 months. So that way, during that time, all the getting help and providing help is frozen. The account in the Mavro is frozen until they resolve the situation. We can avoid this because even if there is a financial crisis, something happens, if everybody understands that as long as we continue to do what we're doing, providing help and getting help, we won't participate in that crisis. Well, matter of fact, we will flourish in that crisis if everybody just understood that point. And lastly, I want you to know that the reason why this system is here is to provide financial prosperity to those that either didn't have a chance or will never have a chance. So figure out what's important to you. Now, why are you doing this? Why is it that you want to help people? Maybe it is because you just want to help people. Maybe you want to share with people that can't help themselves. Maybe it's because you want to create an income. But why do you want to create an income? Because you want more time or you want more money? You know, there's a lot of people that can say you always have more time, but they don't have more money. So you have somebody who's a doctor who has tons of money, but they don't have a lot of time. Or you have somebody who's unemployed who has plenty of time, but they don't have any money. The goal is to have time and money to do the things that you want to do. Whether it's to help a family member or pay a bill or to cover a car payment, or maybe you want to make $1,000 extra a month, or $10,000, or even $100,000. Whatever it is that's important to you, it's important that you strategize with the people that are involved in the system. So what I'm going to say at this point is that we truly do appreciate you taking the time to review the MMM Global program. We know it's a lot of information to take in, and we know that we've shared with you some key points that you may not have known about before in regards to the banking system, in regards to how the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. But you now have an opportunity to take advantage of this system and participate in this system and help us grow the system. And so we know that if you just take the time, the more that you understand it, the more excited you'll get about it, the more you'll want to be involved. So we encourage you to get back to the person that shared this presentation with you, get your questions answered, let them know either you are ready to participate, I'm ready to go now, what do I need to do? So you're that person. Second person is, I have some questions, I'd love to get them answered, but if my questions are answered, I'm ready to rock and roll as long as they're satisfied. And the third type of person says, this really isn't for me. I'm not really into this, this isn't for me, and that's okay. This isn't for everybody. But for those that it is for, it can change your life and change your financial future. And so with that, I want you to take care, take charge, and we'll see you on the other side of prosperity.